This happens when you finally choose yourself above all. A journey within begins. Have you ever paused and realized the life you're living doesn't feel like your own? You've spent years saying yes, and you wanted to say no, molding yourself into what the world expects, until something inside you breaks. This video isn't just a reflection. It's a beginning. A moment of truth. Here, we take you deep into the psychology of awakening. When you choose yourself, face your fears, and step into the life that was always meant for you. You'll explore not just inner conflict, but how the universe responds when you finally live in alignment with your truth. Stay with us as we uncover emotional resilience, the sacred role of solitude, and the power of letting go of masks. This is not just self-help, it's psychological liberation. And it starts now. When you suddenly realize you've been living someone else's life. There comes a moment, often unannounced and quiet, when something inside you pauses. It happens in the middle of ordinary things, brushing your teeth, walking down the street, replying to a message. A question surfaces. Not loud but sharp. Whose life am I living? This moment is not dramatic. There are no explosions, no grand epiphanies. But something essential breaks loose. A subtle, invisible shift. You suddenly notice the weight of every choice made to please others. The clothes you wear, the career you pursue, the way you talk and laugh, all carefully edited to fit into a version of you that others find acceptable. You realize that your life has become a performance. A quiet, polite survival act in a world that rewards obedience over authenticity. You remember how many times you said yes when your whole being screamed no. How often you suppressed your feelings to avoid conflict. How you confused harmony with self-betrayal. For years, you have mistaken fitting in for belonging, approval for love, productivity for worth. No one told you this wasn't the way. In fact, they praised you for being responsible, selfless, easy to be around. But the cost of that praise was yourself. Now the silence inside you is no longer empty. It is filled with longing, pain, and truth. You are not angry. You are just tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of editing yourself. Tired of carrying a life that does not reflect who you really are. This realization is the beginning of something sacred. It is the first crack in the illusion. A quiet rebellion begins inside you. Not against the world, but in favor of yourself. And though the world may not notice, your soul does. This is the moment you stop pretending. Not because you have figured everything out, but because you are finally willing to ask a different question. What would it mean to live a life that is fully yours? The question that changes everything: what if I choose myself? There is a moment when silence inside you becomes unbearable. Not because it is loud but because it holds a truth you can no longer ignore. You look into the mirror and something in your eyes feels unfamiliar. Not wrong. Just forgotten. A version of you that has been buried under years of compliance and quiet suffering. It begins with a question. Simple but powerful. What if I choose myself? You do not say it out loud. You barely even form it. But it echoes. It lingers. It follows you into the smallest corners of our day. It confronts you when you are polite instead of honest. When you agree to things that make you shrink. When you abandon yourself to protect the image others have of you. Choosing yourself is not a declaration. It is not loud or angry. It does not always come with clarity. Often it begins in confusion. In conflict. In guilt. Because for so long you were told that putting yourself first is selfish, that thinking of your own needs is wrong, that love must come with sacrifice. So now when you try to choose yourself it feels like betrayal. But slowly something begins to shift. You start to realize that choosing yourself is not rejection of others. It is the beginning of true relationship with them. Because only when you are honest abo. Who you are can you truly connect. Only when you stop performing can you be fully present. This choice does not solve everything. It might create distance. People may not understand. Some may feel threatened by your change. But that is not your burden to carry. Their discomfort is not you. Our responsibility. You are not responsible for staying small to keep others comfortable. What if you choose yourself and everything changes? What if you lose people but find your peace? What if you disappoint others but finally stop disappointing yourself? What if choosing yourself is not selfish but sacred? These are the questions that turn silence into awakening. The moment you consider the possibility of a life where your needs matter, your voice counts, and your truth leads the way is the moment your real life begins. When you change, the world starts to push back. There is a strange thing that happens when you start choosing yourself. You expect the world to celebrate your courage, to support your honesty, to admire your clarity. But instead, what often greets you is resistance, confusion, sometimes even rejection. People look at you and say you have changed as if that is a crime. But you are not changing into someone else. You are returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. You are no longer agreeing to roles that suffocate you. You are no longer pretending to be less than you are. And that frightens people. They were comfortable with the version of you that stayed small. The one that was always agreeable. Always available. Always adjusting. When you stop playing that role, their comfort is disrupted. No. Because you are doing something wrong, but because your authenticity challenges their illusion. Your growth forces them to confront the parts of themselves they have ignored. Sometimes they will accuse you of being selfish or cold. They will say you are no longer the same person. And in a way they are right. You are not the same. You are not willing to betray yourself anymore. You are not willing to abandon your truth for approval. This shift creates friction. And it hurts. Especially when the resistance comes from people you love. But not everyone who started with you can walk with you through transformation. Some relationships were built on who you pretended to be, not who you truly are. This is the cost of becoming real. The discomfort of shedding old identities. The grief of losing connections that depended on your silence. But this pain is sacred. Because it means you are no longer willing to be invisible in your own life. Do not let their discomfort make you doubt your direction. Growth is not always supported by the crowd. Sometimes it is recognized only by your soul. And that is enough. Letting go of the mask to live without needing to prove yourself. There comes a point in the journey where the mask no longer fits. Not because it has changed, but because you have. The smile you used to keep peace now feels heavy. The words you once said to please others now sound false in your own ears. You begin to feel the cost of living a life that is always edited, always filtered, always waiting for approval. You were taught that being accepted meant being agreeable, that love required sacrifice, that value was measured by how useful you were to others. So you learned to hide the parts of yourself that were too bold, too emotional, too real. You polished your image until it was safe, until it would not upset anyone. But in doing so you lost the ability to recognize your own reflection. Letting go of the mask does not mean becoming someone new. It means remembering who you were before the world told you to be someone else. It means honoring your voice, your truth, your needs. It means living without constantly performing. This is not an easy shift. The desire to prove yourself runs deep. You want to be seen as worthy, as capable, as kind. But that desire becomes a cage. It keeps you chasing validation. It convinces you that love must be earned and presence must be justified. True freedom begins when you stop trying to prove anything. When you realize that your worth is not a performance. It is not based on how much you do or how well you please. It is rooted in your being, in your truth, in your existence. People may not understand this change. They may accuse you of being selfish or distant. But the truth is that you are finally coming home to yourself. You are no longer willing to betray your heart for approval. You are no longer asking permission to be real. This is what it means to live without the mask. Not perfectly. Not without fear. But with courage. With presence. With integrity. Because you no longer need to be liked by everyone. You only need to be true to yourself. When you live authentically, the universe starts to respond. Something unexpected begins to happen when you stop pretending. You start to feel lighter. Not because life gets easier, but because you are no longer carrying the burden of being someone you are not. The tension in your chest begins to ease. Your steps feel more grounded. Even your silence starts to feel like truth instead of emptiness. And then something even more mysterious unfolds. Life responds. You begin to notice small shifts around you. The people who once drained your energy begin to fall away. Conversations that once felt hollow now make space for depth. Opportunities appear that feel aligned with your values, not your fears. It feels almost like magic, but it is not. It is resonance. When you begin to live in alignment with your true self, the external world begins to mirror that change. Not instantly and not always gently. But gradually reality starts to match your internal state. This is not superstition. It is the result of living in coherence. Carl Jung called this synchronicity. A meaningful connection between your inner transformation and external events. It is not about forcing outcomes. It is about allowing what is meant for you to find. Because now you are no longer hiding from your life. You are participating in it. This alignment is not always comfortable. Sometimes it means letting go of goals that no longer make sense. Sometimes it means stepping into uncertainty. But the more you choose truth, the more the path seems to open. The more honest you are with yourself, the clearer your direction becomes. This is the reward of authenticity. Not perfection, not constant happiness, but clarity, connection, and a quiet sense of rightness. The kind of peace that comes not from having control but from being in flow. You will still face challenges. But now you face them from a place of wholeness. You are no longer fragmented. No longer at war with yourself. You are no longer living someone else's story. You are living your own. And life is responding. Loneliness is not the enemy, but the guide. When you begin to choose yourself, something unexpected may happen. You might feel alone. Not because you are unloved, but because you are no longer surrounded by noise. The distractions. The obligations, the roles you used to play suddenly fall silent. And in that silence you hear something new. Yourself. Loneliness has a reputation for being dangerous. People rush to avoid it, fill it, drown it out. But what if it is not an enemy to escape but a companion to learn from? What if loneliness is not empty ness but space? Space to feel, to listen, to remember. In the beginning it is uncomfortable. The absence of familiar chaos can feel like loss. You may miss the constant feedback, even the conflict. You may be tempted to go back to old patterns, to reach or people who no longer align with who you are becoming. But if you can stay a little longer in that stillness, something begins to open. You start to hear the parts of you that were ignored. The desires you buried. The dreams you dismissed. The truths you silenced to keep the peace. And slowly that silence becomes a sanctuary. A plaque. Not of exile but of return. In solitude you build a relationship with yourself. You learn what calms you, what excites you, what drains you. You begin to recognize your own rhythms. Your intuition becomes sharper. Your self-trust begins to grow. You stop looking outside for validation and start looking inward for alignment. This is how strength is born. Not in noise, not in approval, but in presence. Loneliness becomes a doorway to inner clarity. To emotional resilience. To spiritual depth. You realize you are not broken. Without others. You are whole. Complete. Enough. Do not fear this part of the journey. It is not punishment. It is preparation. For the life you truly want. For relationships that are based on truth, not convenience. For a self that is no longer deluded but defined. Loneliness is not a void. It is a mirror. And what you see in it can guide you home. When you stop searching outside, you begin to see within. There is a habit many of us develop without realizing. We search outside of ourselves for answers. We look to others for direction, for validation, for permission. We hope Samio. And he will tell us who we are and what to do. We confuse knowledge with wisdom and noise with truth. This search is not wrong. It comes from a longing to belong, to be understood, to be safe. But after a while we notice something is missing. The more we listen to everyone else, the less we can hear ourselves. The more we follow the maps drawn by others, the further we drift from our own path. There comes a moment when this realization strikes quietly but deeply. You stop scrolling, you stop asking, you stop comparing. Not out of despair but out of clarity. You begin to understand that the answers you seek are not out there. They are inside. And they always have been. This is the turning point. The beginning of real vision. You stop outsourcing your truth. You start reclaiming your authority. You begin to trust that your inner voice is not naive, not broken, not unworthy. It is simply unheard. And now you are listening. At first it is hard. Your inner world might be messy, full of questions, fears, doubts. But it is real. And real is where healing begins. You learn to sit with discomfort, to stay present, to not rush to fix or escape. You learn to witness yourself without judgment. The more you look inward, the more you realize how much you have abandoned yourself trying to be accepted. And with that awareness comes compassion. Not regret but understanding. Not shame but tenderness. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." This awakening is not sudden. It is slow, honest, and often painful. But it is also freeing. Because once you begin to see yourself clearly, you no longer need the world to tell you who you are. You become your own compass. And that is how you begin to walk the path that is truly yours. This journey is yours, no one can live it for you. There comes a point when you realize that no one else can walk this path for you. People can guide you, support you, offer you wisdom, but the steps must be yours. The inner work, the decisions, the courage to face your truth, that is a journey only you can make. For a long time you may have waited. Waited for the right time, the right sign, the right approval. You may have hoped that someone would come along to make the choice easier or clearer. But why you understand that clarity does not come from waiting. It comes from moving. From stepping forward even when the way is uncertain. No one else can feel what you feel or know what your soul longs for. No one else lives inside your questions, your wounds, your hopes. Others may understand pieces of you, but the full story lives only within you. And that story deserves to be lived, not just imagined. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming fully who you already are. It is about peeling away the layers of fear, doubt, and conditioning until you return to your essence. It is about remembering what you were never meant to forget. There will be moments of loneliness, confusion, and fatigue. There will be times you question everything. But each step you take brings you closer to something real. Not perfect, not easy, but honest. And in that honesty you will find peace. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be to begin. The only permission you need is your own. The only approval that matters is your own. This life is yours and it's waiting for you to choose it. Do not wait for the world to understand. Do not wait for conditions to be ideal. Start now. With what you have, with who you are, with where you are. The road will reveal itself as you walk it. And every step forward will echo with the quiet power of truth. You are ready. Even if you do not feel ready. You are enough. Even if you still doubt it. And this journey is yours. No one else can live it for you. Understanding others, to let go of resentment. A mature mind is a compassionate one. As you grow, you begin to see people differently. Not as villains or heroes, but as human beings shaped by their fears, wounds, and limitations. You start to understand that much of what hurt you was not always intentional. It came from people who were hurting too, people who never learned how to love without control, how to speak without harming, how to hold space without judging. This understanding does not excuse what was done. It does not erase the pain. But it does soften your grip on resentment. You begin to see that carrying anger only ties you to the very people you are trying to heal from. Forgiveness then becomes less about them and more about your freedom. A mature mind sees patterns, not just people. It notices how pain is passed down, how silence becomes defense, how fear wears the mask of pride. It stops asking why they did this to me and starts asking, what did they go through that made them this way? This shift in perception does not make you weak. It makes you wise. You start to notice that blame is often a way to delay healing. That judgment can be a shield against vulnerability. And that true strength lies not in proving others wrong, but in choosing to be free from their influence. Compassion does not mean allowing harm. It means setting boundaries without hatred, speaking truth without revenge, and walking away without bitterness. It means understanding that not everyone is ready to meet you where you are. And that is okay. The more you understand others, the less you take things personally. The more you see their wounds, the more you stop defining yourself through their behavior. This is how you reclaim your power. By refusing to let your pain become your identity. This kind of awareness requires courage. It asks you to rise above the stories of victimhood and into a space of clarity. You no longer need to hold on to anger to feel strong. You can choose peace. You can choose compassion. And in doing so you set yourself free. The meaning of life is not something to find, but something you build from within. Many people spend their lives searching for meaning as if it were a destination, a final answer, a treasure buried somewhere outside of themselves. They chase careers, relationships, goals, hoping that one day something will finally feel right enough to fill the silence inside. But meaning does not arrive like a lightning strike. It grows slowly from the roots of your daily choices. It is not found in grand achievements but in small moments of honesty and courage. In the decision to live in alignment with who you really are. You create meaning every time you listen to your inner voice, even when it whispers against the noise. You build it when you choose integrity over approval, presence over performance, truth over comfort. Meaning is not something the world gives you. It is something you offer the world when you dare to live authentically. This kind of life requires patience. It asks for depth. It invites you to slow down enough to hear what your soul longs for, not what society expects. It reminds you that your worth is not in being sageful or impressive, but in being real. The meaning of life is not hiding. It is already inside you, waiting to be lived, not chased. And the moment you stop running and start listening is the moment it begins to take shape. This journey back to yourself is not about becoming perfect but about becoming real. It is about living each day with intention, with courage, and with honesty. You are not here to meet expectations. You are here to live your truth. And the world does not need a version of you that pleases everyone. It needs the real you. The one who chooses wholeness over approval, authenticity over comfort, and me. Aiming over noise. Begin now. Begin with yourself.